Hello y'all, I'm back on this exercise bike and ready for another video for y'all. So this video is going to be about mentors versus great parents. Mentors versus the parents, however way you want to word it. So I got my sweet tea in hand, y'all. So if y'all hear a little rattle, that's what's going on. But I got some real life experiences to share with you. That way you understand that my perspective is from an experience point of view. I also have a playlist that I've created. I think it's called like parenting advice or something to that effect. I did another video on some parenting issues. So here's another video that will help navigate you through these parenting needs with teenagers. And if you know someone else that's going through some parenting issues with their teenagers and things, please share this video. So anyway, going into this video, parenting versus the mentors, or the mentors versus the parenting. And my motivation for doing this is so we can make sure that we're in situations that are helping us and not hurting us, if that makes sense. Because if you get a mentor involved, you want it to be a help source, not a hurting source. So let's go. Okay. The thing with mentors is, let's talk about the law first. And so we can kind of intertwine all of this so that we can understand the complete system. Okay, on the West Coast where I'm at, once a child turns a certain age, they can have a mentor, okay, without the parent's consent. Now, I also want to give praise to the teenagers that follow their instinct. Because, see, a lot of times you have a pretty good teenager that's following instinct, but you're not giving that teenager the credit for having good instinct. And you trained your child up in the way he or she should go. So, in my opinion, what I've learned through this process is mentors may not be a good source for rebellious teens. It may be a good source if that rebellious teenager or young adult needs a place to go because they've burned a bridge with their family. Okay, so it helps in that way, but it's also an enabling system. So I'm going to share some of my experiences, right? One experience that I've experienced, anytime you have to tell a mentor, you're not my children's daddy, you're not my children's mother, that means the mentor is overstepping their boundaries. Mentors, a lot of them come from toxic backgrounds themselves, right? And say they had mommy issues, and you're a mother and you're getting involved with this mentor to help your child. That mentor is always going to be in a tug of war with you. Because, see, the mentor, they want to take control of the situation so they can do their job. And I get that, right? However, sometimes the best mentor is the mentor that's supporting the parent's parenting style that works. So I'm going to give you an example. Using my circumstance and other circumstances that I've kind of seen on and off throughout the years, where it may not be a direct mentor from an agency, but it may be a relative that got involved that made the child worse. So an example would be this. One child does not have the mentor, never had the mentor. And mentors are through these agencies. I mean, you got mentors that's through various programs in your particular state. I'm not going to name any of the programs, but there's some pretty big programs. You know what they are. I'll just name them. Okay. The Y, the Boys and Girls Club. I'm just going to name agencies that are in different states. And then they have other mentor programs that are under these other big programs. So just the main big ones. And I'm not saying that all the mentors work this way. However, the mentors may apply for certain situations. Okay, like for example, I take my children out to eat. They eat at home. There's no food problem. I mean, I've been taking my children out to restaurants since they got in the world. Even before they were old enough to able to eat the actual food. My children were sitting at restaurants with me when they were babies and in their car seats. So, of course, when they grow up, they have the restaurant experience. They have the eating at home experience. I think that your child should have both experiences because when your child goes out to eat, they're learning how to behave in public places. They're out with a diverse group of people, and that can help them. So, I went through, I was out of town. I went to a funeral for a relative. So, there was this other situation that was trying to be of help, right? So, some of the things that these mentors do is overstep the parents' boundaries because, see, sometimes I think having a mentor when you actually have a solid parent. I didn't say a parent that don't want to be bothered with you, a parent that ain't looking for their kids, a parent that don't care where they kids at. I'm not talking about that narcissistic free parenting style that gets kids locked up, kidnapped, because that's a horrible parenting style. You know, I talked about in the other video where even though I had a wonderful grandmother, there was some neglect because of her busy work schedule with her business. But in the other video, I pointed out, I don't think it was intentional. That's just the way it was back then. However, there was benefits of that parenting style. However, the side effect of that parenting style is a teenage mother or a teenage father. I went over that in the other video. So some of the things that some of these mentors will do, because remember the law is because that child is 16 or up, they can get their own services. So the mentor shows up at the school because you may have told them what school your child is at. It may be through a referral. And the mentor says, hey, would you like to go out to eat? And the mentor is the opposite sex. Now, this mentor, you've communicated with the mentor a few months back. The mentor may not directly mean any harm, but I'm from the old school. To show up to somebody's school, somebody's child's school, and ask them if they want to go out to eat without contacting the mother or father or whoever the guardian of that child is and asking for permission is a violation of your parenting boundaries. Now, I have a grounded teenager. So my teenager doesn't want to go with this person of the opposite sex and also really doesn't want the service. And see, that's the thing. A lot of these mentors, they run really good kids off because the kid, if the child or teenager is rebellious at first, they may like that the mentor is kind of like telling their mom or dad what to do or their grandparents what to do. But if you reared this child in the way he or she should go, the child will reject that disrespect. So that means you have a good child. So if a mentor comes up to your child's school, asks them out to eat without your permission, and your child says, no, I don't want it, don't make it where your child's in trouble. Oh, you disrespected an adult? No, they didn't disrespect an adult. They disrespected or they refused. They didn't disrespect anybody. They refused to go with a stranger. Because you got to remember, women have sex and try to come on to these boys too, y'all. In my case, I have a son. So see, you got to watch out for these Mary Kay Letourneaus. And they exist in all races. Mary Kay Letourneau ain't just a white lady. There's some Mary Kay Letourneaus that are black, Spanish, Asian, they're different races. Hawaiian, you name it. European, African. Mary Kay Letourneaus can be in many different races. They're Indian, they're from India. I'm just naming, some of the countries right off the tip of my tongue on this. No disrespect to nobody's country, but I just want to point out, because I don't want nobody to think this is just an attack on the white woman. But remember, Mary Kay Letourneau, she ended up having 2 daughters with that little boy. Okay? And he was victimized. He lived through a living hell. I think he's grateful for his daughters. I do. I think he loves his daughters. I think Mary Kay Letourneau loved her daughters also. However, at the end of the day, she was messing with this child, and she was a married woman. And I think she had 3 to 4 children of her own. She's passed away now. May she rest in peace. This is not an attack on nobody that's already asked for forgiveness for their sins. They're passed on. I think she died of like cancer, I think, or something like that. But however, that's just a pure example. So you can't underestimate the violation that can happen to a boy. A lot of times people are like, well, you have a son. What's the big deal? Well, the same crap can happen to my son that happens to your daughters. So this is my suggestion, because I'm always about bettering the situation and giving an idea that may work. So what I have found is these mentor programs through a lot of these big agencies, the Y, the Boys and Girls Club, etc. Some of those mentors may be of better help for children that are from drug addicted parents. And the reason I say that is because if the parent is drug addicted, there may be, in some cases, not all drug addicted parents are severely neglectful. It depends on if they're a functional drug addict or if they're dysfunctional. But let's assume a mother that's on a hardcore drug is pretty dysfunctional. Let's assume that a father that's on a hardcore drug is pretty dysfunctional. And they don't always have to be on a hardcore drug. Sometimes they're just on their weed. Because remember, it's about how much you smoke it, right? If you're smoking your marijuana from 6 in the morning to midnight, you ain't parenting nobody. You ain't nobody's auntie or uncle. You're not a good big cousin. You're not a good neighbor, okay? These are just some of the opinions and perspectives of me, okay? That's just how I feel. And at the end of the day, if a teenager has a severely drug addicted parent or guardian, they need that mentor. However, if the teenager actually has a solid parent or solid parents, a mentor is needed, but through a different source. Okay? So this is the suggestion I'm going to bring up. See if you can find mentors through your religious organization. See if you can find mentors within the family. Maybe there's some guys or women already in your family element. See if you can pay some of your friends to mentor the child. And mentors must meet this criteria. And this is just a suggestion. Mentors do not need to be on drugs and alcohol. And there are mentors that are not on drugs and alcohol. I think that it's a good idea to get a mentor that's graduated from high school. Maybe pick a mentor that does have children. However, mentors that don't have children can be excellent because they are not being consumed by their own family. So they actually have the time to handle your child and be a role model for your child. However, if a mentor does not have their biological children, it's a good idea that that mentor babysat when they were young. Okay, like I have a big cousin and she has no biological children, but you can almost consider me one of her kids. Because when she was a child, she was walking around with me on buses, combing my hair. She was much more than just my babysitter. She could look at me and see if I was stressed out and all of that. So, my big cousin has experienced babysitting children, and I was one of them. Okay. So, to me, she would make a great mentor because she's had a lot of experience with children, not just me, but you can see on her Facebook page, she's involved with other children, and she's naturally a mentor. It was just in her. It's just she made great choices. She didn't want to be nobody's baby mama. She didn't want to be no teenage mama. She didn't want to be the abused wife. So she never married or had kids. Like I said, she lives a great life. It ain't cut for everybody. Everybody not meant to be a mom or a wife. Everybody's not meant to be a dad or a husband. And like I said, they live good lives. And it's a blessing whether you have children or you don't. That is just my honest perspective and opinion on that. So, my teenager in this case is rejecting mentors. And guess what? I'm so proud of him because he's showing independence. So you don't want to take that away from your child. He's also showing the things I taught him not to get in the car with strangers. Somebody walking up to the school saying, "Hey, you want to go out to eat?" And they 40 years old, that's a stranger. Okay, so in my case, I commended the child on that. What I'm going to do is communicate with this particular mentor, see what else can be offered. But I think that in my son's case, it's not an appropriate road to go down. However, he was open to other mentors through religious organizations, people that he's more familiar with that have worked with him since he's been approximately 9 years old. And when I mentioned those mentors, he had a smile on his face. So ultimately, it's kind of like this. A lot of these mentors, you're too advanced for that particular mentor, which means what they're offering, you've already offered it. So the service is not for you. And also consider this. I'm going to give you another example. Mentor involved within 6 months, 5 to 6 months of having this mentor, now this young adult could potentially be in a shelter situation. However, if that young adult or teenager would have stayed home with their mom or dad, they would not be in that situation. They would be in a stable household. They would not be in a shelter where they're having to move out of that shelter. So I'm bringing up that example to say this. Recognize patterns when the mentor, or recognize patterns where the teenager or the young adult has a mentor and the situation for the participant or the client, which would be the teenager or the young adult, gets worse. And it is worse. Okay? Because a lot of those cases, a lot of times the mentor is enabling and encouraging rebellion. It's an intrusion and an interference in your parenting style. Because, like I went over in the other video, you want to have a parent-led parenting style, not a child-led. So mentors in a lot of cases are not needed. Listen to your teenager. Your teenager saying they don't want it, they fine. Your teenager comes home every day. Your teenager goes to school on time. Your teenager ain't on drugs and alcohol. It's okay to just have a parent and not a mentor. Biblically, the Bible does not say honor mentors. It says honor thy mother and father. So be careful of all this new age stuff. that is a total contradiction to what biblically a parent is supposed to offer. Because you don't want interference. You want a better situation for your teenager. And it's not always going down the mentor ways. Because the mentors, a lot of times, they're making your children adults before they're adults. That's why they're saying, okay, well, when they get 16, they can decide what they want to do over the parents. And that may work if that child does not have an interested parent. But if that child has a parent that's interested in them and in their survival, in their life and growing up, that mentor is a total intrusion. And it will get worse. Ultimately, getting worse to where the child, teenager, or young adult is now homeless. And that's not what you want. And that's not the plan that you have for your teenager. So stay grounded. Live in confidence, moms and dads and guardians and adopted parents. And we can do this, y'all, okay? And so ultimately, find the appropriate mentor. And it's not always through these agencies. I love y'all. Please like, share, and subscribe. Bye.